Alex sat at the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the alarm clock. The hands seemed frozen in place, but the numbers were moving, counting the minutes he wished he could take back. Another day of endless work and responsibilities awaited him. The weight of it pressed down on his chest like a heavy stone. He had been feeling like this for months now. The stress was constant, gnawing at the edges of his mind and draining him of energy. Even when he was at home, he could not escape the feeling that there was always something more to do. Some deadline he had missed, some email unanswered, some task still unfinished. The days blurred together, and sleep had become more of a brief pause than a true rest. He rubbed his temples, hoping to massage away the tension, but it only seemed to intensify the throbbing. He had tried everything he could think of to relax: short walks, herbal teas, breathing exercises, but nothing seemed to work for long. Every little thing piled up and became overwhelming. He could feel the fatigue in his bones, a constant reminder that his body was giving up before his mind would let him. On some days, even the simplest things felt impossible. Washing dishes, making lunch, replying to a text message, everything seemed like a mountain too steep to climb. He had started to feel trapped in his own life, moving through each day on autopilot, surviving, but not really living. One morning, as he sat slumped over his breakfast, scrolling through social media, he saw a post from an old friend. The message was simple: "Classical music helped me get through stress. Maybe it can help you too." He paused, intrigued, though he was skeptical. Music had never been more than background noise for him. He had never really paid attention to it, except maybe the occasional catchy song that played on the radio. But something about the simplicity of the message, and the fact that it came from someone he trusted, made him consider it. Could music really make a difference? Could it actually calm the whirlwind inside him, even for a little while? Curiosity mixed with desperation, and he decided to try it. He remembered a small stack of CDs he had bought years ago, but never listened to, forgotten in a drawer. Dusting them off, he found the familiar names: Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin. These were names he recognized but had never explored beyond a few passing melodies in movies or advertisements. He set the CD player on the table, pressed play, and waited. The first notes of a piano sonata filled the room, soft and deliberate, moving like water over stones. It was different from anything he had heard before. The music was calm, yet it carried a weight, an emotional depth that felt familiar. Though he could not place why, at first he barely noticed it. The mind was busy as always, listing things to do, worrying about emails, wondering what could go wrong today. But slowly, he felt something shift. The corners of his mind softened. The tension in his shoulders eased a little, tightness around his chest loosened, and the noise in his head became a little less harsh. He closed his eyes and let the notes wash over him, letting the rhythm guide his breathing. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A small space opened inside him, a quiet corner where he could rest. If only for a few minutes. The first few days were simple experiments. He would play a short piece in the morning, another in the evening, and observe how he felt. Some days he barely noticed a change. Other days, he could feel a small ripple of peace that lingered longer than expected. He began to pay attention to the patterns, the flow of the music, the rises and falls, the pauses that felt like gentle breaths. He found that Beethoven's piano sonatas gave him a sense of strength and determination. Mozart's symphonies brought clarity and lightness to his thoughts, and Chopin's nocturnes carried a deep, soothing melancholy that somehow made the weight inside him feel less heavy. It was not magic. The stress did not disappear entirely, and the work was still demanding. But for the first time in months, he felt a spark of control, a small reminder that he could take care of himself in a world that constantly demanded more. He started to look forward to these small moments, the ones where he could sit quietly and just listen. It became a ritual, a way to reclaim a few minutes of peace in an otherwise chaotic life. One evening, he sat by the window, watching the sunset, while Chopin played softly in the background. He felt a strange combination of sadness and comfort, like the music was speaking to the emotions he had been ignoring. He had been pushing them down, telling himself to be strong, to keep going, but now they were allowed to surface. And he realized that acknowledging them did not make him weak. It made him human. He realized that he had been too hard on himself, expecting to handle everything without pause, without relief. Music offered him permission to breathe, to feel, to be himself without judgment. As the days passed, Alex noticed small changes in his daily life. He was still tired and work was still stressful, but the edges were not as sharp. He could focus a little better, make decisions without feeling overwhelmed, and even smile more easily. His colleagues noticed a difference too. They commented on how he seemed calmer, more approachable, less tense. These small affirmations gave him encouragement. He realized that self-care was not selfish, and that taking a few moments to nurture himself actually improved the way he engaged with the world. He also began to research more about the composers. Intrigued by the stories behind the music, Beethoven had struggled with hearing loss but poured his emotions into every note. Mozart had faced pressures and expectations from a young age, yet his music carried a joy that transcended personal struggles. Chopin had known illness and hardship, and yet his nocturnes were delicate and deeply expressive. Learning about their lives made the music feel more alive, more personal, as if these long-gone composers were whispering guidance through their art. It reminded him that struggle, creativity often coexist, and that finding solace in beauty was not only possible but necessary. Alex's journey was still just beginning, but the first part of it was clear. He had found a tool, a companion, a small sanctuary in the chaos. Music became a friend he could return to, a quiet presence that offered consistency when everything else was unpredictable. It was not about avoiding life's challenges, but about equipping himself with something that helped him face them with more patience and clarity. By the end of the week, he found himself looking forward to the moments when he could sit in silence with the music. He began to notice how it affected his mood subtly throughout the day. Even a short piece played in the background while making breakfast seemed to make the morning less stressful, the tasks more manageable. He was beginning to see that healing did not always come in big, dramatic changes. Often, it came in tiny, consistent moments that slowly accumulated, creating a sense of stability. One night, as he lay in bed with Mozart's symphony playing softly, Alex realized he had not checked his phone for hours, had not thought about work, had not worried about what was next. He felt a rare, pure sense of rest, a stillness that had been missing for months. The music did not solve all his problems, and he knew they would return in some form. But for now, it allowed him to be present, to exist without the constant pull of anxiety and responsibility. In that quiet moment, he understood that healing could begin in small ways. Through simple acts of self-kindness, through something as unassuming as listening to music, he decided to keep going, to explore more pieces, to let the music guide him through the noise of everyday life. This was the first step, the moment where he opened the door to a path of healing, patience, and self-awareness. And though the journey ahead would have its challenges, Alex felt something he had not felt in a long time, a glimmer of hope, a sense that peace was possible, and that he had found a way to reach it, note by note, melody by melody, day by day. After the first week of listening to the music, Alex began to feel a growing sense of curiosity. The world of classical music was no longer just background noise. It was starting to feel like a place he could retreat to, a small corner of calm in the chaos of life. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, he decided to explore more deliberately. He pulled out a notebook and started writing down the names of pieces that caught his attention. Beethoven's slow piano sonatas, Mozart's gentle symphonies, and Chopin's delicate nocturnes filled the list. Each piece had its own personality, and Alex wanted to understand them better. To connect with them fully, he began to notice that each composer's style affected him in different ways. Beethoven's music was strong and steady, giving him a sense of courage and determination. Mozart's compositions were bright and playful, lightening his mood and making even small tasks feel manageable. Chopin's nocturnes were soft and emotional, almost like a warm embrace, carrying a feeling of comfort and understanding that Alex had been missing. Listening to these pieces, he felt emotions that he had been ignoring, feelings that had been buried under stress and worry. One night, he decided to sit in the living room, lights dimmed and play one of Beethoven's sonatas from start to finish. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, letting the music guide him. The first notes were firm and commanding, and he could feel a strange sense of focus settling in his mind. Thoughts of deadlines and unfinished tasks began to fade, replaced by an awareness of each note, each pause, each shift in rhythm. It was as if the music was speaking directly to him, reminding him that there was a rhythm to life, that he could find his own balance within it. Over the next few days, Alex made it a habit to set aside time specifically for listening. He experimented with different times of the day, different settings, and even different moods. He would play Chopin in the evening when he needed to unwind, Mozart in the morning to start the day with clarity, and Beethoven during challenging work tasks to find strength and focus. These moments became sacred, small rituals that allowed him to reset and recharge. The changes were subtle but noticeable. His sleep improved, not immediately but gradually. He no longer tossed and turned as he tried to quiet his mind. Instead, he would lie in bed with a quiet piece playing in the background, and he could feel his thoughts slowing down, his breathing deepening. He began to wake up feeling a little lighter, a little more prepared to face the day. Even small stresses at work were easier to manage. Emails no longer felt like an overwhelming pile. Instead, they became tasks that could be addressed one at a time, calmly and deliberately. Alex also started paying attention to his body in ways he had neglected before. He noticed tension in his shoulders and back that had become so normal he had stopped feeling it. When he listened to music, he became aware of these areas and would gently stretch, allowing the tension to release. He felt more in tune with himself, more aware of how stress manifested physically and emotionally. The music served as a guide not only for his mind but for his body, encouraging relaxation and self-care. Curiosity led him to explore more about the composers and their lives. He read about Beethoven's struggles with hearing loss and his relentless pursuit of expressing emotion through music. He learned about Mozart's intense creativity and the pressures he faced even as a child. Chopin's life, fragile yet deeply expressive, showed him that even delicate souls could leave a powerful impact on the world. Knowing these stories made the music feel alive, connected to real human experiences, and not just notes on a page. It reminded Alex that hardship and beauty often coexist, and that expression can be a path to healing. He began to notice how music influenced his emotional responses. Small annoyances that would have triggered frustration before now seemed less significant. He could pause, take a breath, and let the music help him regain composure. A coworker's abrupt comment no longer caused a rush of irritation. Instead, he felt a calm awareness, a reminder that he could respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Life was not less stressful, but he had tools to navigate it more effectively. Alex started experimenting with combining music with other calming practices. He would take a short walk with Mozart playing through headphones, noticing the rhythm of his steps matching the flow of the composition. Sometimes he would journal while Chopin played, letting his emotions spill onto the paper, guided by the ebb and flow of the melodies. These small experiments showed him that music could enhance mindfulness, focus, and self-expression in ways he had not anticipated. One afternoon, while listening to a Beethoven symphony, Alex had an unexpected moment of clarity. He realized that the stress he had been feeling was partly due to his constant resistance to life's demands. He had been trying to control everything at once, never allowing himself a break, never permitting himself to simply exist. The music reminded him that life had its own rhythms, and that it was okay to flow with them rather than fight against them. This insight did not erase the challenges, but it gave him a new perspective, a different lens through which to view his daily struggles. He began to integrate music into more aspects of his life. Even while cooking, he would play a gentle piano piece, noticing the textures of ingredients and the sounds of utensils, finding small moments of joy in ordinary tasks. He realized that the music was teaching him to be present, to notice details, and to appreciate small, often overlooked moments. Life was not suddenly perfect, but it felt richer, fuller, more meaningful. There were days when the music did not seem to help, when stress and fatigue felt overpowering. On those days, Alex would still allow himself to listen, even if the effects were minimal. He learned patience, understanding that healing and calm were processes, not instant results. The consistency mattered more than the immediate outcome, and the act of showing up for himself became a form of care. As the weeks went by, friends and family began to notice changes in Alex. He was calmer, more attentive, and less reactive. Conversations were easier, laughter came more naturally, and his presence felt less burdened by tension. Small affirmations from those around him reinforced the positive changes, encouraging him to continue exploring the world of music. One evening, he sat quietly, listening to a Chopin nocturne, and reflected on how far he had come. The music had become a companion, a guide, and a source of comfort. It was no longer just notes on a page. It was a living experience, connecting him to emotions, to his body, and to the human experience itself. He realized that he was learning to respond to life with patience and awareness. Rather than simply reacting out of habit or stress, music had opened a door to a new way of being. Alex could now face challenges with a calmer mind, a more open heart, and a renewed sense of resilience. He had discovered that healing did not always require grand gestures or drastic changes. Sometimes it was the quiet, consistent presence of something beautiful, like a melody, that could guide a person back to themselves. The journey was ongoing, but Alex felt more equipped, more hopeful, and more connected to the simple joys and rhythms of life. As Alex continued to explore the world of classical music, he realized that it was beginning to touch not just his mind, but his entire life. The simple act of listening had started to influence his routines, his habits, and even the way he approached challenges. Music was no longer just a tool for relaxation. It had become a companion, a guide, and sometimes even a teacher. He found that, by integrating it into daily life, the effects were stronger and more consistent. He began to experiment more intentionally. In the mornings, he would put on a lively Mozart symphony while making breakfast. The bright notes seemed to lighten his steps, make the act of preparing food feel more joyful, and ease the grogginess that usually clung to him at the start of the day. The music seemed to provide a rhythm, a gentle push that guided his energy toward focus and positivity. Even tasks he had once considered mundane, like washing dishes or tidying the apartment, started to feel less burdensome. The notes seemed to carry him along, and he found himself humming along unconsciously, a smile forming without even realizing it. Afternoons were often the most challenging. When work fatigue and mental tension built up, and the demands of deadlines loomed large, Alex discovered that a few minutes of Chopin could make a remarkable difference. He would close his eyes, listen to the gentle rise and fall of the piano, and feel his shoulders loosen. His breath, which had often been shallow and hurried, became deeper and more steady. Even during the busiest days, these short pauses gave him a chance to reset. It was as if the music was reminding him that he did not have to be constantly running, that it was okay to pause and regain balance. Beethoven became his companion for moments that required determination and focus. Long projects that had once felt impossible suddenly seemed manageable when he listened to a strong, purposeful sonata. The music inspired a rhythm to his work, a sense that he could tackle each task step by step without becoming overwhelmed. His mind, which had previously jumped from one worry to another, began to settle into a quiet flow. Tasks that once induced stress became challenges. He could meet with patience and clarity. There were moments when Alex experimented with listening while doing other calming activities. He started taking walks while music played through his headphones, noticing how the rhythm of his steps sometimes matched the tempo of the melodies. He began journaling with Chopin in the background, letting the gentle notes guide his thoughts and emotions onto paper. The music seemed to open doors within him that he had not accessed for years, allowing feelings to surface and be acknowledged without fear or judgment. He realized that it was not just the act of listening that mattered, but the awareness and presence he brought while listening. As he explored more pieces, Alex also became fascinated with the complexity and emotions embedded in each composition. He noticed the subtle shifts in tempo, the pauses, the crescendos, and how they seemed to mirror life's ups and downs. Each piece felt like a story, a journey through emotion, and he found himself reflecting on his own life as he listened. The music seemed to validate his feelings, teaching him that both joy and sorrow had a place, and that embracing these emotions was part of being human. He also began to notice the effect music had on his interactions with others. Conversations with colleagues and friends became more relaxed, more attentive. He was able to listen without judgment, respond without impatience, and offer support without feeling drained. Music had subtly changed the way he approached human connection. It was not that he was suddenly free from stress, but he had developed a buffer, calm center that allowed him to respond rather than react. His presence became steadier, more grounded, and people began to notice at times. He shared his experiences with others carefully and naturally. A friend noticed the change and asked what had helped him feel more calm and focused. Alex hesitated at first, but then explained how he had discovered classical music and incorporated it into his day. He shared that it was not a miracle solution, but rather a practice, a way to care for oneself and find moments of peace amidst life's demands. Some friends were intrigued and curious, others skeptical. But Alex realized that the personal journey mattered more than others' reactions. It was about what worked for him and the peace it brought to his life. One afternoon, Alex faced an unusually stressful situation at work. A project that had already been delayed was now facing additional complications, and the pressure felt intense. Normally, this would have caused tension, panic, or even headaches. But this time, he paused, took a deep breath, and put on a short Beethoven sonata. As the music played, he felt a shift. The chaos did not disappear, but he could see the situation with more clarity. His mind, which had been clouded with worry, began to focus on solutions rather than problems. The music created a mental space where he could think, plan, and act deliberately, rather than being overwhelmed by anxiety, even in social moments. The influence of music was evident. Alex found that he could engage in conversations more fully, appreciating the small nuances in what others said. He laughed more freely, listened with genuine interest, and felt less self-conscious. The inner calm provided by the music made him more present and attentive. It was a reminder that the benefits of music were not limited to quiet moments alone, but could spill over into interactions. Making life feel richer and more connected, he also began to experiment with creating a dedicated space for listening. A quiet corner of the apartment was arranged with a comfortable chair, soft lighting, and his music collection easily accessible. It became his personal sanctuary, a place where he could retreat and immerse himself in the melodies without distraction. He discovered that the physical environment mattered. The combination of comfort, light, and music created an atmosphere where relaxation and focus were easier to achieve. Sitting there, listening to Chopin in the evening or Mozart in the morning, he felt a deeper connection to himself and the world around him. Alex's curiosity led him to explore music beyond what he initially knew. He discovered lesser-known works of the composers, pieces that were delicate, playful, or introspective. Each new discovery was like a small adventure, revealing nuances in rhythm, emotion, and expression. He began to appreciate the skill, creativity, and heart that went into composing music, feeling inspired by the thought that human expression could be so powerful and enduring. These realizations reinforced the idea that beauty could exist even in struggle, and that finding it could provide strength. Despite all the positive changes, Alex remained aware that life's challenges had not disappeared. Stressful days, demanding responsibilities, and unexpected difficulties continued to appear. But the music had given him a new way to approach them. Instead of being consumed by stress, he could create space for calm, find clarity, and maintain balance. He learned that the goal was not to eliminate problems, but to navigate them with a sense of control, presence, and resilience. One evening, after a particularly long day, Alex sat quietly in his music corner. Chopin's Nocturne played softly, filling the room with its gentle, soothing melody. He closed his eyes and allowed himself to simply exist, without thinking about tasks, deadlines, or worries. For the first time in a long while, he felt fully present, aware of the music, aware of his breath, and aware of a sense of peace that was deeper than anything he had felt in months. It was a quiet triumph, a reminder that even small, consistent practices could create significant change over time. By now, music had become more than a tool for relaxation. It was a companion that influenced the way Alex lived, worked, and related to others. It had taught him patience, presence, and the importance of caring for oneself. He had discovered that even brief moments of listening, when approached with awareness and intention, could ripple through the day, improving mood, focus, and resilience. The journey was ongoing, but Alex felt stronger, calmer, and more capable of facing life's challenges with grace. Through the integration of music into his daily routines, Alex experienced a subtle transformation. He realized that peace and calm were not distant goals, but accessible in the present moment. By listening, feeling, and connecting with the compositions, he had found a way to nurture his mind and spirit. Life was not perfect, but he now had a rhythm, a method, and a companion to help him navigate it. Music had become a constant presence, a source of comfort, insight, and joy, guiding him step by step through the complexities of his days. And with each note, Alex felt more grounded, more aware, more connected to himself and the world around him. Alex's connection to music had grown deeper over time. What started as a simple experiment to relieve stress had turned into a meaningful part of his life. He began to realize that the music was not only helping him manage stress, but also giving him a sense of understanding about his own emotions. It was as if the composers, through their notes and rhythms, were offering guidance, showing him that feelings could be expressed and experienced fully without fear or judgment. One afternoon, Alex sat in his quiet corner with Chopin's nocturnes playing softly. He closed his eyes and let the music fill the room, noticing how each note seemed to resonate with parts of him that he had ignored for a long time. There were memories and emotions, small regrets, moments of joy, and traces of sadness that the music seemed to embrace. He allowed himself to feel them fully, without trying to push anything away. It was both humbling and comforting, as if the music was telling him that it was okay to be human. With all the complexity that entailed, this growing awareness inspired Alex to explore more about the composers themselves. He learned about Beethoven's determination despite his hearing loss, about Mozart's intense creativity, and about Chopin's delicate health and deep emotional expression. Understanding their lives gave him a new perspective. He realized that even those who faced great struggles could create something beautiful and enduring. It reminded him that hardship and beauty often coexist, and that expression, whether through music or life itself, could be a form of healing. Music began to influence other areas of Alex's life as well. He started journaling regularly, letting the melodies guide his thoughts and emotions onto paper. Each piece seemed to have a rhythm that shaped his writing, allowing him to explore feelings he had not recognized before. Sometimes, he would write about work challenges. Other times about personal reflections, and occasionally about moments of joy or gratitude. The music created a safe space for self-expression, helping him process experiences and emotions with clarity and compassion. He also started taking more mindful walks, carrying headphones and letting music accompany his steps. Beethoven's sonatas energized him, providing a sense of strength and determination as he moved through the streets. Mozart's symphonies lifted his spirits, making him more aware of small pleasures, like the sunlight on the leaves or the sound of birds. Chopin's nocturnes encouraged introspection, turning ordinary walks into moments of quiet reflection. The music added a rhythm to his movement, a gentle guide that connected his body, mind, and environment. Social interactions began to improve as well. Alex noticed that he was calmer in conversations, more patient, and more attentive. When friends or colleagues spoke, he could listen without judgment, respond without impatience, and offer support with genuine care. Music had given him an inner stability that reflected outwardly, making his presence more reassuring to others. It was a subtle but powerful shift, one that made his relationships feel more authentic and connected. There were also moments of profound emotional release. While listening to Chopin late at night, Alex sometimes found tears streaming down his face. These were not tears of sadness alone, but of relief, release, and recognition. The music allowed him to connect with feelings he had been holding inside, to honor them and then let them go. It was a process of cleansing, subtle yet deeply impactful. Over time, these experiences built a resilience within him, quiet strength that could withstand life's pressures without collapsing under them. Alex noticed that his creativity in other areas of life also began to flourish. Tasks that once felt routine, like organizing his space, planning meals, or even approaching work projects, started to feel more engaging. The music seemed to awaken a sense of curiosity and attention to detail. He began to appreciate the small elements of life, noticing colors, textures, and sounds that previously went unnoticed. The world felt richer, fuller, more alive. Music had opened a door to presence and awareness, teaching him to see the beauty in everyday experiences. Even the stressful moments at work no longer felt insurmountable. There were still challenges, deadlines, and unexpected obstacles, but the way Alex approached them had changed. Instead of reacting with frustration or anxiety, he could pause, take a deep breath, and allow the music in his mind to create a sense of calm. Decisions became clearer, solutions more accessible, and interactions more composed. Music had given him a mental framework to approach life with patience and balance. Alex also found himself sharing the experience with close friends and family. He would recommend pieces that had helped him, not as a cure, but as a companion, a guide, a source of comfort. Some friends tried it and noticed small changes in their own stress levels. Others were skeptical. Alex understood that each person's journey was unique. The important thing was that he had discovered a method that worked for him, something that brought consistency, calm, and insight into his life. As the months passed, Alex noticed a deeper sense of self-awareness emerging. He could recognize early signs of stress or tension and respond with music and mindful practices before they escalated. He could navigate emotional waves, both positive and negative, with a gentler, more accepting attitude. The music had become a tool for emotional intelligence, helping him understand and manage his inner world with empathy and clarity. He began to create small rituals around music, moments intentionally carved out for reflection and presence. Morning sessions with Mozart, midday breaks with Beethoven, and evening reflections with Chopin became anchors in his daily routine. These rituals provided structure, comfort, and a sense of control amidst the unpredictability of life. They also reinforced the idea that self-care was not a luxury, but a necessity, an essential part of maintaining mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Alex found that music also enhanced his sense of gratitude. Listening attentively to compositions, he became more aware of the beauty in his surroundings and in everyday moments. He appreciated simple experiences, the aroma of coffee in the morning, the sound of wind rustling through leaves, the laughter of a friend. Music had heightened his sensitivity to life, allowing him to find joy in what he had previously overlooked. There were times when he reflected on how far he had come since the first week of simply experimenting with music. The constant tension, the sleepless nights, the sense of overwhelm, all of those struggles had been gradually eased by the consistent presence of melodies. Music had not solved all problems, but it had taught him how to live with them more gracefully. It had provided a companion through the ups and downs, a way to process, reflect, and regain balance. One evening, after a long day, Alex sat quietly in his corner, the room dimly lit, listening to a Chopin nocturne. He allowed the music to flow through him, noticing the gentle rise and fall of each phrase. For a moment, he let go of planning, worrying, and analyzing. He simply existed, fully present with the music and with himself. It was a moment of peace that felt profound, yet simple. He understood that these moments, though small, were the foundation of a more balanced and resilient life. Through this process, Alex realized that music was more than entertainment. It was a form of communication, a language that spoke directly to emotions, thoughts, and the soul. It had taught him patience, presence, empathy, and self-awareness. It had become a way to navigate life with intention and grace. And as he listened, he felt a connection not only to the composers of the past, but to himself and the world around him. a quiet reminder that beauty and understanding could always be found, even amidst life's challenges. By the end of this period, Alex had embraced music as an essential part of his life. It had shaped his routines, transformed his emotional responses, and deepened his self-awareness. He had learned that healing and growth often come in small, consistent steps, and that simple practices like listening attentively to music could create profound change. Music had become a companion, a teacher, and a source of peace that would continue to guide him through the complexities of life, offering insight, comfort, and joy with every note. By the time several months had passed since Alex first discovered classical music, his life had subtly but deeply transformed. What had begun as a tentative experiment to reduce stress had grown into an integral part of his daily existence. Music was no longer just a temporary refuge. It had become a steady companion, a guide, and a source of insight. Each day he found himself leaning on the rhythms, melodies, and emotions embedded in Beethoven, Mozart, and Chopin to navigate the complexities of life. Mornings began with Mozart, bright and lively, filling the room with a sense of energy and optimism. Even when the day promised challenges, Alex found that starting with music allowed him to approach tasks with clarity and calm. He noticed the way his steps aligned with the tempo, the subtle lift in his mood, and the ability to focus without feeling pressured. It was as if the music set a tone for the day, creating a rhythm that harmonized with his own pace and intentions. Afternoons often brought work fatigue, but Alex had learned to counteract it with brief moments of musical reprieve. A short session with Chopin's nocturnes became a ritual, allowing him to release tension, breathe deeply, and reconnect with a sense of inner calm. During these pauses, he observed the way his body responded, the loosening of tight shoulders, softening of a tense jaw, and the quieting of racing thoughts. These small breaks created a bridge between overwhelming responsibilities and manageable focus, and over time, Alex realized they were as essential as any task on his to-do list. Beethoven's compositions remained his anchor during particularly demanding moments. Whether facing difficult decisions at work or navigating personal challenges, the structured intensity of Beethoven's sonatas provided strength and determination. Alex discovered that listening closely to the intricate arrangements helped him approach problems methodically, breaking them down into achievable steps. The music had taught him a kind of resilience that was quiet but unwavering, a reminder that patience and persistence often lead to solutions. Over time, Alex noticed that the influence of music extended beyond structured listening sessions. Even simple, ordinary moments began to carry more presence and meaning. Walking through the neighborhood, he would sometimes hum along to a melody in his head, noticing details in the environment he had overlooked before: the soft rustle of leaves, the patterns of light and shadow, the gentle hum of distant voices. Music had sharpened his awareness, turning everyday experiences into opportunities for observation, reflection, and gratitude. Emotional growth was another profound outcome of his musical journey. Listening to Chopin, he learned to sit with his emotions fully, acknowledging both joy and sorrow without resistance. Music offered a safe space for reflection, allowing feelings that had long been suppressed to surface and be processed. Tears sometimes came unbidden, but they were cleansing, a release of tension, a quiet celebration of the human experience. Through these moments, Alex developed an emotional resilience that strengthened his capacity to engage with life authentically. This emotional awareness also enriched his relationships. Conversations with friends, family, and colleagues became more attentive and compassionate. Alex found himself listening more deeply, responding with care, and connecting with others in ways that felt genuine and unhurried. Music had provided him with an inner steadiness that radiated outward, enhancing the quality of his interactions. It was a reminder that personal growth does not exist in isolation, but influences and enriches the lives of those around us. Alex continued to explore the lives of the composers who had become his companions. Learning about Beethoven's determination despite deafness, Mozart's incredible creativity under pressure, and Chopin's fragile health and emotional depth, he felt a sense of kinship with their struggles and triumphs, Understanding their personal journeys added layers of meaning to the music, transforming each listening experience into a dialogue across time. He realized that human resilience, creativity, and emotional expression were timeless, and that he could draw strength from these examples. He also incorporated music into creative practices beyond listening. Journaling while music played allowed him to explore his thoughts and feelings more freely. The flow of melodies guided his words, leading to reflections that were insightful and often surprising. Alex found that music helped him articulate ideas and emotions he had previously struggled to express. It became a tool for self-discovery and mental clarity, bridging the gap between inner experience and conscious understanding. Mindful walks and daily routines also became enriched by music. Beethoven's sonatas energized movement, Mozart brought lightness and joy, and Chopin encouraged introspection. Simple tasks, such as cooking, cleaning, or commuting, took on a new dimension as music accompanied each step. Alex began to notice the textures, patterns, and rhythms of life more vividly, cultivating a sense of presence and appreciation that extended beyond his listening sessions. Despite these positive changes, Alex knew life still held challenges. Deadlines, responsibilities, and unforeseen difficulties were a constant, yet he approached them differently now. Music had given him a framework for responding with calm, patience, and clarity. When stress arose, he could pause, breathe, and allow the melodies to anchor him, giving him space to think and act deliberately. The music did not remove obstacles, but strengthened his ability to navigate them gracefully. Sharing this journey with others became part of Alex's growth. Friends and family often asked about his calm demeanor and how he managed daily pressures. He spoke about music as a companion, not a cure, emphasizing the importance of consistent practice and mindful engagement. Some tried it and felt subtle benefits. Others remained skeptical. Alex understood that each person's path was unique, and the value lay in the personal transformation he had experienced rather than the opinions of others. Evenings became moments of quiet reflection and deep presence. Alex would sit in his music corner, dim lights casting soft shadows, and let Chopin's nocturnes fill the room. He observed the ebb and flow of the melodies, allowing them to guide his thoughts and emotions. In these moments, he experienced a sense of peace and contentment that had been elusive for years. Music had become a teacher of mindfulness, a source of emotional clarity, and a reminder of the beauty inherent in life's small details. Alex also found that music enhanced his creativity and engagement in other areas of life. Tasks that had once seemed routine now carried a sense of purpose and enjoyment. He approached work, household activities, and personal projects with attention, care, and curiosity. The music had awakened a deeper awareness, making life feel richer and more vibrant. Ordinary experiences became opportunities for connection, reflection, and appreciation. Looking back, Alex recognized the profound impact of his musical journey. The small, consistent acts of listening, reflecting, and integrating music into daily life had accumulated into a significant transformation. He was calmer, more resilient, emotionally aware, and present. He had learned to navigate stress with intention, to process emotions with compassion, and to appreciate the subtle beauty of everyday life. Music had become more than a practice. It was an essential companion that guided him through both challenges and moments of joy. Ultimately, Alex understood that true healing and growth are gradual and ongoing. Music had taught him patience, presence, and self-compassion. It had become a bridge between the inner and outer world, allowing him to live with awareness, balance, and a sense of fulfillment. The melodies of Beethoven, Mozart, and Chopin were not just sounds but threads, weaving a richer, more meaningful life. And as he sat in quiet reflection, letting the music wash over him, he felt a profound gratitude for the journey, the lessons, and the peace that had become an enduring part of his everyday existence.